Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Security Officer for Product, Pivotal, Justin Smith.
Hi, good morning. I'm Justin. I'm one of the many people at Pivotal that work on security. I'm excited to be here. As we all know, there's a flood of new technology available to enterprises. Pivotal and many others are part of that wave. And one of the things we don't talk about very often is the impact that this change is having on enterprise security, and in particular, enterprise security teams. You know, security is really my domain, and I thought it would be a good way today to talk for a few minutes with a customer panel about the effect all this change is having on enterprise security. So I think we've got a great panel lined up this morning. We've got lots of real-world experience from big enterprises. Now, I'm going to introduce the panel before they come out on stage. I ask that you hold your applause and throwing of roses and things like that till we're all out here. And so first, we've got Thomas Squeo, the Chief Technology Officer of West Corporation. We've got Thomas Fredell, the Chief Product Officer from Merrill Corporation. We've got Jenny Zhang, the Principal Architect for Corporate Security at Mastercard. And we've got Kurt Glore, Enterprise Director for Express Scripts. Please join me in welcoming the panel to the stage. All right, welcome. So let's kick things off. You know, Thomas at West, how do you see the role of enterprise security teams changing, let's say in the next year or so? How do you see that unfolding?
So within West, we start to see security teams becoming more of a partner to the product teams. You know, we think about it as going from kind of governance to guidance, or being much more part of that team. So if you start to see the evolution to things like DevSecOps and things like that, that's really where we start to see it. And we focus in on our relationship with the security organization is that if we can standardize things within the platform as much as possible, that gives us an opportunity to be a lot more consistent with the right way also being the easy way.
Makes sense. And Thomas at Merill, how are you seeing this shift in your organization? It's also worth pointing out, all of these organizations are extremely security sensitive, right? We've got telecommunications, a few different branches of finance, and we've got pharmacies. We've got telecommunication, money, and drugs up here. So these are very real-world problems. I'll turn it back to you, Thomas.
For us, it's similar. What we've really seen is instead of security just being a checkpoint, we want security involved at the very beginning from a design perspective. So that model of security engineering embedded within teams like DevOps. And for us, there's really an opportunity. How do we push the envelope on security and what we can deliver to our customers? Because trust and security is part of the value proposition that we deliver to market.
And how about for you, Jenny, at Mastercard?
So security for Mastercard is, there's no doubt, it's the #1 thing in the executives list. So they have made security as the #1 priority of the company. And over the years, I come from technology background, so over the years I can see the transition is more from the technologist and becomes a trusted the advisors to all the decision makers of the company, and we are part of a lot of almost every single decision making in the process.
That makes sense. I love the term governance to guidance. Another one is approver to enabler, right? I think this is a shift that's happening just across the industry. And for Kurt, your business is really about automation and high scale. And this, I think, creates a tension with developer choice and centralized control. How are you guys navigating that choice?
Thanks, Justin. Absolutely. So we'd want to enable our developers as much as possible and give them choice of tools where appropriate, but we have to strike that balance between compliance and efficiency. So there are lots of tools that the developers are able to choose from on their desktop and within their teams, from team to team. But when it comes to something like a CI/CD pipeline, that remains within a centralized team. But one of the things that we're doing now is pairing up those development teams with that centralized team when we make changes or enhancements to make sure that we're getting real-time feedback and making decisions that will benefit the development teams.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, a big part of any modernization effort around security is going to revolve around automation. It's a big part of what Pivotal brings to the marketplace and others. Across the panel, starting with you, Thomas, at West, what do you think is the hardest thing to automate around security?
Thanks, Justin. I think that one of the things that we see that's really difficult to automate is that when we do that automated security testing at the beginning, how do we make that as also an opportunity for professional development? So rather than just have it kind of blow through that cycle and actually not have kind of a closed loop around how that actually informs the process of helping our software engineers become more security conscious. I mean, I think that what we now have is that for our organization, security is actually the #1 measure. And so, we start to see this, it moved from kind of an afterthought to a baseline requirement for everything they're doing.
Yeah. And how about you, Thomas, at Merill?
So it's so fundamental for our product offering. Our offering is all about trust, helping people to share information in a secure online environment for very, very large financial transactions, for mergers and acquisitions. So for us, it's really automating around the end user scenarios, things like roles, rights, visibility to content and information that may depend on state and some kind of complicated workflow rules. So for us, it's really around the automation of the way that the application is working and ensuring that we're giving customers tools that are very easy and not enabling them to accidentally shoot themselves in the foot.
How about you, Jenny?
So when it comes down to the automation, I think I'm probably just, among all of you as well. So there's a lot of challenges. And, one of the things I wanted to mention is if you look at the tools that we have in our company, how many tools that we utilize to control different functions, different architecture, or having different architecture, or having, for different systems. And the challenge was integrated all these tools and to provide one single effective security architecture is the biggest challenge for us. So we have to work with, you're trying to automate it. You automated one, yeah, that's easy. But if you're trying to automate with all these platforms, all these systems all together, it is the big task. So that's the biggest challenge we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it makes sense. And for Kurt, I think one of the coolest customer tours I've ever been on in my career was at Express Scripts, watching how they run their business in the kinetic world is super cool. So automation for you is just absolutely second nature. What's hard about security there?
I think the biggest challenge in automating security and bringing it in is striking the right balance between enhancing that security and still moving fast.
Right.
And it can be done. You can be fast and secure. So we need to look at, there's lots of proven methodologies and emerging methodologies out there around how to do this, whether it be in your CI/CD pipeline, on the dev desktop. But let's look for those ways to strike that balance, go fast, be secure, and put a good product out.
Yeah, it makes sense. One of the sayings I like to ponder and offer is secure technology usually reduces the need for security technology. And so I like to contemplate what it means to actually have a secure base and move more away from application developers and push it more into the platform. Therefore, you need less security checks, you need less automation around that. What are the big features that you really look for in a platform to take things away from an application developer to make them consistent? I'll offer that down to you, Thomas.
So when we look at this, it's really around what can we take out of the application operator's hands more than anything else. So one of the things that, like many enterprises, we have a large estate, a lot of legacy technology in there, as well as also kind of emergent cloud native stuff. And what we see is that making it generic is not simple. So you have to be able to deal with the edge cases of things as it kind of moves through this process. So ultimately what we see is that by getting folks into the platform, we're essentially giving them an opportunity where we can start to isolate that they can actually deal with those issues that require them to refactor their applications locally, and more just the infrastructure of our operations teams and how we're actually managing all of that globally. They're able to operate in those environments knowing that they're actually going to be able to focus more and more on what's in their local control.
Right. How about you, Thomas, at Merrill?
So for us, we really want all of our development energy to be focused on solving customer needs. So what that means to me is how can you constrain the things that you have to do? Working with PCF, we can give developers flexibility so they can pick their language, if it's Java, if it's Node, Kotlin, Go. And they can do that and then have the knowledge that the cells and the build packs are constantly up to date and patched. So there's this whole set of problems that they don't have to focus on, which is fantastic because we want them to be focused on solving customer needs and creating value for our customers.
How about you, Jenny?
So we have been using the centralized model for years. And at the Mastercard, we have been following what they call now it's called the zero trust model. We have been doing it for years. And over time, the only way that we thought was most effective was kind of centralize the security controls. And we're trying to build that into the containers and build into the network level and build into every single component that we can touch. But over time, it generates a lot of complexities. And when it comes on the calls, you're trying to figure out where the problem is, and so it's very difficult. So now we're kind of shifting the models more towards the platform managed instead of container managed. It's not really the container, it's more like an application server at that point. But now we're trying to push that functionality into the platform that kind of alleviated a lot of direct controls from the application developers, from the application teams. That really helped.
Makes sense. And Kurt?
We want to make the right thing the easy thing. So for us, we've been driving adoption like crazy, and we're getting really good results. We still have a lot of legacy that we're moving, but we like the clip that it's going at. And for me, what better platform to drive our community towards than Pivotal Cloud Foundry?
I like the sound of that. One of the concepts that I think really it makes sense going forward is performing functional tests on security, so you're actually looking for the result rather than going in and only looking at code that it's formed the right way. If you rely on tests, like we're prone to do at Pivotal, it actually allows you to change lots of stuff inside the application, inside the platform, and have the same assurance that you're doing the right thing going forward. So we have just a couple of minutes left, and I want to give each of you a chance to kind of offer to the group, what's the one thing you wish that app developers and app teams would just get, that they just had? If you had one wish in that arena, what would it be? Thomas?
Well, there's a couple of things, and I think when we look at our app developers, within West, we're actually going and securing each layer of the OSI stack as it kind of comes up to deliver business value. And so not only do we want to be able to make sure that we have, our teams understand that security is no longer an option, it can't be a second thought, also kind of sparking that intellectual curiosity where what does it mean to have a white hat on your team and be able to be part of that. That's something that I think is exciting. And I think that a lot of folks right now, I think it's one of the more interesting computer science problems to solve as well. So.
Yeah, I think cybersecurity is the coolest domain in computer science, but I'm highly biased.
So I thought that was very well put, and I totally agree with that. So what I'll add to it is, like anything, it's garbage in, garbage out. So what we focus on is sort of bringing the future into the present, meaning what we want to do is really simulate ultimately what we're going to deliver before we ever deliver it. So I think having an awareness of how you can simulate, prototype, get that out, have a very tight feedback loop, all of that on a secure foundation is really what ultimately will enable developers to bring something that is truly meaningful and valuable to whoever your end customer happens to be.
Jenny?
So for me, I wanted all the application developers to understand that we share the common goal when it comes down to securing applications. just like we are. So we trying to advocate that message, within the company, and we want to work with the developers and to secure every single thing that we can. This is the message I wanted to send out.
Got it. And Kurt?
Well, the first thing I would say is creating and maintaining secure systems is a responsibility of everyone.
Yeah.
And I would love for the devs to continue to get curious around what can we do to build those secure systems in real time and be able to understand what it means to look at the code through the lens of a bad actor and understand what type of exploits might be there and take care of them before we ever ship the code.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think one of the big movements that's happening is the role of enterprise security teams is changing. We talked about governance to guidance, approver to enabler. But this actually affects organizational structure. It also affects how we report on security and the kinds of metrics that we care about. And the final parting second, Thomas, how do you guys report on security up through your leadership chain?
Well, our CISO is a partner of mine, and basically it's kind of architecture, product, technology officer, and then CISO. So I mean, it's all part of our risk and control organization. So it's actually a board reported item with every board meeting.
Makes sense. All right, I'd like to thank the panel for their time. Thank you, audience, for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the conference.